Welcome to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast.
3 sentences, 15 seconds. That's all it takes to set up a great conversation. The reason that intent is so important up front is until we know what to do with a piece of information, our brains literally don't know how to process it. If I don't tell you exactly why you need to pay attention, your brain is not going to be able to understand what's coming next. And it's because of something called working memory. Plan for a really solid first minute, and you'll probably find that your conversations are all a lot shorter.
That's Chris Fenning. He's spent over 15 years helping make communication easier for professionals. He's the author of 2 award-winning books, and today he's going to share some of his best wisdom from his book, The First Minute, How to Start Conversations That Get Better Results. So you'll learn 1, how to capture your audience's attention in 15 seconds, 2, why meetings feel like a waste and what to do about it, and 3, the one question that's ruining your reputation. I'm Pete Mockaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Chris. Chris, welcome.
Hi, Pete. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
I'm excited as well. We're talking about conversations today. Your book is called The First Minute, which I love. Could really be like an action movie with a title like that, Chris. Tell us, what's so important about the first minute of a conversation, or is it just a catchy title?
Well, I've been told it's a catchy title. The reason for the title is the whole book is literally about the first minute. So it is quite an important thing. And you ask what it is? Well, and why is it important? It's important because if in a work situation, if you're at work and you're communicating with other people, if you get the first minute wrong, you will pay for it through the rest of the conversation. Your reputation can take a hit, and people may not want to communicate with you again in the future. But if you get it right, you can get people's attention, keep their focus, and get their message across all in 20 to 60 seconds.
Oh, Chris, I love a very clear value proposition. There we go. Have it. Okay, cool. So could you tell us a cool story about a professional who saw a transformation in terms of their first minutes were a little bit rough, but then they worked your magic, Chris, that on the other side, they saw some cool things. Do you have some tales like this?
Yes, there's one person who really comes to mind, and she was a junior project manager at a time when I was a director in a large PMO. We were running big programs for a large American health insurance company. And this junior project manager had incredible potential, but she was new in her role. And part of her role involved presenting to a senior leader. And this leader was a tough nut. They had very high standards. They expected everything to be in detail, to the point, and complete, which is kind of a contradiction to do all of those things. So this junior PM did her best. And to prepare, she did what many of us do, which is include all the detail, help educate this person so they could really understand the message that was coming next. And of course, that's a crash and burn situation, because the more detail you put up front, the longer it takes to get to your point, the further you are from the value of your message. And so in working with her, we employed some of the things from the first minute, and also a technique to say, only give 3 updates and then ask a question. And what happened is she went from delivering all of the detail up front. Oh, let me tell you about this. This is what has happened, and this is why it's important, so that blah, and then she would get to her ask. She ended up coming in and saying, hi, today I want to give you updates on 3 things. They are A, B, and C. What I want from you is a decision, some advice, and I literally don't know what to do with the third one. So really looking for some help there. Let me start with topic number 1. And she framed the conversation beautifully so that instead of feeling attacked and under pressure by that senior leader, the leader said, oh, great. Actually, I want to talk about number 2. Can we go to that first? And they had a conversation instead of this long drawn out introduction that led to the leader being frustrated because it wasn't what they wanted to know.
Oh, Chris, I love that so much, because what you've just demonstrated there doesn't sound too hard to do. When you hear first minute, I think, it sounds like, oh, high stakes, first minute, it's make or break. I could lose it. I could screw everything up. I need to dazzle them with a startling statistic or a hilarious tale or something in order to grip them in our TikTok addled world of whatever. But no, what you did is you just set up a nice little preview. Like, hey, this is what we're going to do and kind of what I want. And it's like, oh, I could do that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. None of this is complicated, but it does take deliberate effort to apply it over time. None of it is rocket science. I can say that. My background is rocket science. This isn't it. This is definitely simpler than rocket science, but we need to remember to do it. And you gave a really good word there. You said it's a preview of the conversation. And that's exactly what it is. The method that I just described in the book is called framing. And it's the first 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds. And if you frame your message, you're setting up your audience to pay attention and know what you're going to tell them and understand why it's important to them. And that preview addresses 3 questions that we will have if somebody starts badly. And the questions are, what are you talking about? Why are you telling me this? And what is your point? And you can avoid those 3 questions if you deliver a very simple preview, simple framing in that first 15 to 20 seconds.
I love that because what you're describing there is exactly what's in their head in terms of like, wait, what are we doing here exactly? And I've heard, and I think it's so well said, that great copywriting, like if you're writing words to be persuasive, like in a sales situation, is joining the conversation that is already in your prospect's head. Like they're having this conversation with themselves and you're just joining right there where they are, meeting them in that zone, that spot. And it's like, oh, perfect. This fits right here, as opposed to, I'm annoyed, I'm irritated, or I want to change the channel, get this away from me.
Yes. One of the differences with that, so in that sales environment, you want to meet your audience with the problem they're having, with the goal they're trying to achieve. When we're at work, we're in the other sort of advertising space of pattern interrupt. What we're doing is interrupting someone else's day, interrupting their thoughts so that they focus on what we want to talk about. And that's always a tough sell anyway, because people have got their own stuff to do. And so we have to go about it in a way that very quickly shows the other person the value to them or the importance to them, which is why the second thing in the framing is intent. The first part is context. What is this topic? What are you talking about? The second part is intent, which is what do I want you to do with the information? And the third is key message, like the point of what you're trying to say. And the reason that intent is so important up front is until we know what to do with a piece of information, our brains literally don't know how to process it. And because we've interrupted someone, whether we've bumped into them in a corridor, even a planned meeting, they're thinking about something else. We say, right now, Pete, I want to talk about this topic. If I don't tell you exactly why you need to pay attention, your brain is not going to be able to understand what's coming next. And it's because of something called working memory or sometimes called short-term memory. And now this isn't where did I put my keys and what are the names of my kids. This is where our brain receives information. It has to work out which part of the brain to fire up to do something with it. Because if I tell you a funny story, one area of your brain will engage. But if I ask you a question, a different area of your brain will start to fire up and pay attention. And until your brain at a subconscious level knows which part to engage, it just gets stuck in a loop saying, well, what do I do with this? What do I do with this? What do I do with this? And if we don't give our audience a clear instruction, hey, I need your help. Heads up, you need to know this. I'm about to give you an instruction. So that's very clear intent. If we don't say that, the audience is just going to be wondering, why are you telling me this? Right up until the moment that we do.
That's good. And Chris, I appreciate new context in terms of bumping into them in a hallway or corridor, because I was thinking, here we are at this meeting. It's like, this is on the calendar. It has a title. We kind of know update about this project. We have some sort of sense for what it's about, but there's still questions hovering around. In the context you've set out, there's even more of a wide open field for, wait, what's going on right now? What are we even talking about?
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we start conversations in our own heads before we actually start the conversation with the other person.
Yeah.
If I saw you across the office, like, I need to talk to Pete about this. We've got this team meeting next week. I'm missing this critical piece of information. Oh, Pete, great, I've got you. So, blah. And then I launch into the detail because I've already started that conversation in my head 10 feet away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good to remember. I think often we'll just sort of say something like, hey, can you send me the link? Can you give me the info? Do you have the newest data? I was like, wait, what link, what info, what data? Like, I really do need much more.
Can I talk to you about next week? Sure, I've got 39 meetings. Like, which one?
Totally. All right, well, let's go into some detail. We got the context, the intent, the key message. You even gave me some seconds there. So how about you give me a rundown of what do you mean by context? How many seconds is that? What's a great example of context setting versus a poor example of context setting? And then do likewise for intent and key message. No pressure.
Absolutely. So in terms of seconds, we'll go with sentences instead. One sentence for each of those three things. One sentence for context, one for intent, and one for key message. And if you want to get really tight, you could do it as bullet points because sentences can really run on. So thinking in bullet points can help. So we start with context, and that's what is the topic or the theme of the thing I'm going to talk to you about. Now, a good example would be, hi, Pete, can I talk to you about next Thursday's team meeting? I'm very specific on time and the event. If I said, hey, can I talk to you about next Thursday? I'm thinking about the team meeting. You might be thinking about the meal we've got planned in the evening. And I'll say, well, I'm struggling to get the location locked down. Well, now you're thinking about the place we're eating, and I'm thinking about the place that we're meeting. Rhyme aside, that is a very common type of misunderstanding because we're not specific on time and event. So clear context. I want to talk to you about next Thursday's team meeting. You now know everything else I'm going to say relates to that, and you're not guessing. So one sentence. Then is intent, and we've covered that a little bit. It's saying what you want the other person to do. Hey, Pete, I want to talk to you about next Thursday's team meeting. I need some advice. And you now know I'm going to ask for your help. Or heads up, something's changed. You're now preparing to adapt to whatever that change is. So you've got a very clear indication of what should come next and what to brace yourself for. And it's not always bad things. I could say, hey, Pete, I want to talk to you about next Thursday's team meeting. Funny story. You now know I'm going to engage in a hopefully funny story at that point. That gives you the option to say, oh, well, actually, I don't have time for a funny story now. Can this wait till later? So that sort of gives you an out because it's very clear what I want to talk to you about. And the third part is that key message, which is the headline, the most important thing you want to put across. And one of the best ways to understand the value and importance of a headline is imagine you were reading an article, newspaper, blog article. If you start on paragraph 7, how long does it take you to work out what that article is really about? Do you get it straight away? Or are you still sort of working it out as you go through and adjusting your ideas as you go through the rest of the article? And as we go through, we sort of adjust what it may be about as new information comes along. But if you start with the headline and the first paragraph, assuming it's a well-written headline and first paragraph, in most articles, newspapers, and so on, the headline and the first paragraph tell you what that article is going to be about. And that makes it easy for you to understand all the detail that comes afterwards. And that's why you have a headline. And your key message is the most important thing you want to put across. In the military, it's often bottom line up front, or BLUF is an acronym that's quite commonly used. Put the most important thing at the front, and then you can explain it, justify, expand it afterwards. But don't put all that info first because you'll lose the audience and they won't know what's important. So you start with context. This is the topic I want to talk to you about. One bullet point, one sentence. Then the intent. Here's what I intend you to do with it. Here's why I'm talking to you about it, why you should pay attention. Another one sentence or one bullet point. And then the key message. And we'll be nice. You can have 2 sentences for that if you really want to expand it out. But very, very short. And it's not about compressing the entire conversation into those 15 seconds. It's about previewing. It's about framing, which is the name of the technique, so that you can then go on and have that conversation, and your audience is not thinking those 3 killer questions. What is this about? Why are you talking to me? And what is your point?
Well, so we talked about the first minute, but Chris, it seems that we've accomplished this within 15 seconds. Do you have pro tips on the other 45 seconds, or what are you thinking out there?
Yes. Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, the first 15 seconds just wasn't as catchy a title.
Yeah, it is harder.
So in the first minute, there are some other things that we should do. And I want to put in a caveat at this point. Like all great models and methods and everything that we learn, there's always a caveat. There's always an exception. And what I want to make it clear is for anyone listening to this and thinking, okay, so when I start a conversation, the very first thing I say is context, intent, and key message. I'd say, hold on. First, please be a human. So when you interact with people, have that human connection, have that relationship building. Go, oh, hey, Pete, I heard there was a storm in your area last week and there was some fences damaged. Is your garden okay? Did you have anything, any issues there? Have that type of conversation. And then at the moment you say, oh, by the way, I want to talk to you about, when you switch to the work, that's when these methods begin. Otherwise, it's very robotic and we can come across as a very formulaic way of communicating. So be a person first. But when you start talking about the work, that's when these methods begin.
And I was going to say, with regard to the human versus work perspective, it's funny because there's like a whole spectrum there in terms of you might have something you need to share with a friend or your spouse, and this could actually be quite helpful in terms of getting things framed up so they say, oh, okay, I understand, to make for an effective conversation. But on the flip side, they might say, dude, why are you talking to me like that? We're just pals here. There's no need for this.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on that?
My thought on that, at the moment, is I'm picturing my wife who recently said, if you context, intent, key message me one more time. So definitely some limitations on it. However, it comes down to situation, to topic, to your particular style, your friend's style, and so on. If you're in a friend-based situation, you're chatting to your pal, but you've got an urgent situation that you want to talk about, then this can help you cut straight to the point. On the flip side, if your style with them has always been more casual, well, then be more casual. You can adapt the style, but just know that when you start talking about the important thing that you want to communicate, the longer it takes you to deliver those 3 pieces, the more confused they will be and the more likely they are to make assumptions about the reason for their conversation or what the topic might be, and so on. So the quicker you frame that up, the less assumptions there are and the less risk there is for the rest of the conversation.
Understood. All right.
So the rest of the first minute includes 1 major piece and 2 small steps that can make the difference between you being polite or not. And the major piece is a summary. Now, this is useful if you're about to explain something that's big, or if you're giving a status update, for example. So when we talk at work, we don't have time to put in all the details. We have to summarize a much bigger piece of work or a much bigger topic or something that is more complex than we can fit into a conversation. And a way to do that is to deliver a summary in the next 30 to 45 seconds that make up the second part of the first minute. And that summary uses a method called goal, problem, solution. So the overall structure of the first minute is frame it in that first 15 seconds, and then you can summarize your big message, and then you can have the rest of your conversation.
So goal, problem, solution. Are we hearing some of that in that 45 seconds then?
Yes, you are. Yes. And it's a really, really good way to summarize or set up almost any topic at work. Let's give an example. If I was giving you a status update, you'd said, hey, Chris, you promised you'd deliver this edited podcast episode in the next week. Where are we with that? And I could say, well, my goal is to get it to you on Friday. The problem is my laptop died yesterday, but what I'm doing about it is I've borrowed a laptop for a friend and I'm making up some hours over the weekend. Would you like to know any more about any of those pieces? So I've summarized an entire situation. I didn't say, oh, the dog knocked over my water and the house nearly burnt down because there's an electrical fire. Oh, I took a whole... I didn't go into all that detail.
Sorry to hear that, Chris.
It was a tough day for the dog.
Yeah.
And that's what we add in. We tend to add all of that detail. We tend to add things that are chronological, things that happen in the order in which events occurred. And that's a very natural way of telling stories and communicating, but it's not a very effective way of doing it. And so using goal, problem, solution gives you as a listener some critical information. First is the goal, and that's, hey, this is the thing that we're trying to achieve. In this case, in the example, trying to deliver an edited podcast episode. Hey, I want to deliver this. Now you understand what the whole topic is. It's sort of an expansion on the topic. Well, the problem was my laptop died, haven't been able to do it. And then I move on to a solution which is forward focused, and I'm looking at what I'm doing about it. I'm telling you the solution to the problem so we can achieve the goal. And the goal is what you care about.
Mm-hmm.
So by doing all of that, I've condensed everything into a short summary, and then I finished it with a question. Is there anything about that you'd like to know more about? And that gives you the opportunity to go, yeah, what happened with the water and the dog? And you can expand on the problem, you can clarify what the goal was, or you can probe what the solution is going to be. You get to make those choices, and it's gone from being a very long monologue into a short status update followed by a dialogue where we both get to talk.
And I'm curious with regard to problem. I mean, sometimes there just aren't any problems. The goal was I was going to do this podcast by Friday or whenever. And so my team's working on it and we should have no problem getting that done.
That's your update.
If there's no problem, we just skip it and that's that.
That's that. When it comes to status updates, if everything's on track, just say everything's on track. And that is one of the hardest things to do. I imagine a lot of people listening to this are thinking, well, my status update meetings are, we're all in a room and we go around the table and everybody lists the stuff they did in the last week. And that's the status update. And that's so painful and not efficient and generally doesn't give value to everyone else in the room. There are lots of reasons why we do it. There's an innate human need to demonstrate value or a belief that we have to show we're doing work. Otherwise, people might not see we've got value in our roles. But in those situations, imagine if the updates, because nothing was going wrong, if your update was just, we're trying to achieve this goal and everything's on track. Is there anything you'd like to ask me about? If that was the update, how short would those meetings be?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that would be delightful. And it really, I think you're really nailing something here with regard to meetings and the time they take is folks want, I don't know, we want someone somewhere to say, good job. And to know that I'm doing real things, even if I'm working remotely or this is ambiguous knowledge work with lots of collaborators. I promise I'm actually doing my job.
Yes.
Like we want to be seen and heard and acknowledged. That's our humanity and results in long meetings. So there's our trade-off.
It does. Now, there's a way that we as the person speaking can help find a middle ground. And it's what I've been doing through this. It's always ending with a question. So here's my update. Is there something you'd like to go into more detail about? Or if I gave an update and everything was okay. So I'm working on this super important project, but everything is on time, on budget, no risks, no issues. That utopia that very rarely exists. But let's assume that everything's going well. And I said, yeah, we're on this project. Here's our next milestone. Everything's on track. But can I take a minute to tell you just a couple of the great things my team has done? Or a couple of things that we've done that has helped us stay on track. And then the rest of the room can either say, no, we don't have time, or no, we're not interested, or yeah, sure, you get a couple of minutes to do that. And you're asking for permission rather than just taking time out of that group environment.
I like that a lot because what you are asking permission, and if I'm hearing that, I think that you're a swell person who wants to give credit to your team. And it's not about you. Can I tell you how amazing I am?
That's the tough one.
So that's really cool. And I feel like the right answer is, of course, I should say yes. But I could also set parameters like, how about 40 seconds? And then away we go. Or, Chris, I think we all know that your team is full of rock stars, but tell them we appreciate them and let's move on. and so there we go.
Exactly that. You're giving everyone else in the room permission to say no, which comes back to, I mentioned there were two little things we can do to be polite in the first minute. And one is a time check and the other is a validation checkpoint. Now, the actual semantics on those are less important than what they are. The first is at some point in your first minute, preferably near the beginning, ask if the other person has the amount of time that you need. And here's an example of how to do it badly. Hey, Pete, do you have a minute? And the reason that's bad...
1 minute.
Yes, is most of us can't organize our own thoughts in a minute, let alone have a conversation about whatever it is we want to talk about. So if you ask for a minute, you better darn well need just a minute, because otherwise you're setting yourself up to miss your own deadline. I laughed while I said it, but this is a tiny but important reputation hit. Because if I ask for a minute and then take 5 or 10, I've either badly misjudged it, I can't time manage, I lied, I didn't care. There's all sorts of very, very small impressions that I give through that one statement. And if I keep doing that over time, I'm demonstrating that I'm less reliable. So don't ask for a minute, ask for the actual amount of time or more than you think you're going to need.
That's great. Well, Chris, lay it on us. I'd love example in very different professional contexts, maybe even some personal contexts, just to mix it up. We've got some nifty tools, the context, the intent, the key message, and a goal, problem, solution. Lay it on us. Here we are at work. We got to say some things.
Yeah, we've got
Say it for us in the format.
All right. So we'll go with somebody who works in a call center talking to their team leader because they want some time off. So a great way to do it would be to go up and say, hi, I'd like to talk to you about vacation. I'm looking for permission because I want to take next Thursday off work. That's the context, intent, and key message. And then I could say, look, I'm trying to keep a good work-life balance and I need to use my vacation by the end of the year or I'm going to lose it. The problem is we are stacked as a team. I know that the call center volumes are high and it's tough to take time off. So what I've done is I've asked someone else in the team if they can cover my shift so that I can get this time off. Is that okay if I have the time off for next week? So there was a lot going on in there, and it would involve, in that case, finding someone else to cover a shift and so on. But in that situation, you can deliver a lot of information, but in a very short period of time. And then the manager would have questions. Well, when and who is going to cover you? And do they have the right qualifications? And what do you mean there's a problem with your using your vacation time? There's all sorts of ways the conversation could go, but it's been set up very clearly in the first place.
All right. How about another?
All right. It's a different situation. You've got a leader, merger and acquisition, small company being purchased by a large company. And there's a problem in this case. One of the managers in the small company is perhaps nervous about their job. So it's a very different situation and quite emotive. And they could say to their new line manager, hi, I'd like to talk to you about the reduction of roles. I've got some questions. I'm actually a little bit concerned about what my position will be in the new company. That's the framing with the context, intent, and key message. Then on the goal, problem, solution, I know that our goal is to bring these companies together and there's going to be some downsizing. The problem is I'm really uncertain about what's coming and it's affecting how I think about what we're doing next. And I'm struggling to deal with all of the integration activities we have. What I'd like to do is take some time with you to understand what that future hierarchy is going to be and understand what my role in it might be. Now, that's a hard one to do. There's a lot of emotion in there and there are lots of different ways to approach it, but it very clearly lays out the conversation. And hopefully takes that emotion out at the beginning of the conversation.
That's beautiful. And it comes across way better than, so you going to fire me or what? Because like that may be like the burning question that you have, but
Yeah.
you are covering that and other bases, so you get even more good context and information if they, in good faith, engage you fully and candidly in that dialogue. So it's good. And I think it may be a good meta lesson there is if you have, I don't know, fear, resistance, trepidation associated with saying a thing for whatever reason, like it's vulnerable or it might seem unprofessional. That's what you want to know. Am I going to get fired? Is this going to reduce my power? Am I still going to get paid my full bonus? It's like, oh, I feel so like selfish, like not a team player. Like they have these, but this really is on my mind. I think that in some ways, Chris, just taking the time to think through it with these key steps or ingredients can go a long way and bringing a little bit of peace and courage so you feel like you can go there instead of just wondering and keeping silent.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Having a structure to help you plan a difficult conversation is so valuable, so valuable. And let's explore we'll give a slightly different example on that fear for my job. And then I'm going to give a very everyday example of the start of a conversation so that people have got, oh yeah, I can see that in my day to day. But in this example where I'm worried about my job, am I going to get my bonus? Am I going to get my severance pay? Will I have a job next month? I have a very clear goal for me. My goal is to find out whether I have a job. The problem is my boss is not telling me. So my solution is go and demand from my boss. That's my internal version of goal, problem, solution. Now I need to take a breath and think about it from their perspective and the organization's perspective. How can I get what I want, get what I need, but talk about it in a way that isn't just me, I need to know my stuff and you're all bad and you're the reason I can't have it. So my goal is to find out, but the goal of the organization is to have a smooth transition with these two companies coming together. My problem is I have no idea what's going on. The company's problem is there's uncertainty about what's coming next. And so the solution happens to be the same. Can we please have a conversation and get clarity on what the timeframes will be for knowing or what the announcements will be or help me understand the process? So your personal goal and problem are probably not going to be the things that come out of your mouth when you're in a workplace situation. You need to find a way to frame them from the perspective of the organization, from the other individual, so that you can find that common ground and it takes the conflict out. Because as soon as you can find a common goal, in this example, we want the organizations to merge together well. That's a common goal. You get the other person going, yes, we do. I understand. We're on the same page. And then you can introduce a problem that hopefully the other person will be like, yes, I want to help solve that problem because we're trying to achieve that goal that benefits us all. So that little bit of preparation using a structure can help you find that common ground with the other person.
Okay. And you said you had one everyday example?
Yes. So a goal problem solution for an everyday example is I'm trying to set up next month's town hall meeting or next month's team meeting. The problem is I'm struggling to get approval from some of the individuals that are being invited. Can you help me get in touch with their team leader and get their approval? So it's a common goal. I'm trying to get people to come up to next month's or next week's team meeting. The problem is I'm just not getting the feedback or interaction. So as a solution, can I enlist your help, Mr. or Mrs. Manager, to get that interaction from the other team and get the feedback that I need? So it doesn't have to be a big topic. It's still about finding that common ground so that the manager knows this is what we're trying to achieve. Yes, I agree that's important. This is the problem standing between us and that goal. Yes, I understand that that's important. And then you're talking about the solutions. So it can be big, it can be small. So it works in a great range of circumstances.
Okay. Well, now, after the first minute, I'd love it. You're big on being concise. Any pro tips on keeping things succinct, concise, as you are speaking beyond the first minute?
Yes. 3 points at a time and then a question. So if you've made 3 separate points and haven't paused for the other person to ask a question or interject or provide feedback, you've gone on for too much.
Okay.
So that's one. The second is plan what you're going to say. If you get the first minute right, you'll get to your question, you'll deliver the most important piece of information, you'll have summarized things so that you actually don't need a lot of what you might expect in the conversation. You've already stripped out the detail, you've already stripped out the backstory. And if the other person doesn't need or want it, they might just say, yes, okay, here's the answer to your question, and you're done. So plan for a really solid first minute, and you'll probably find that your conversations are all a lot shorter.
Okay. Well, Chris, tell me, anything else you want to make sure to mention before we shift gears and hear about some of your favorite things?
The last piece is the validation checkpoint. If you've done a great first minute and I've framed it and I've asked if you've got time, so Peter, I want to talk to you about this thing. Do you have 5 minutes? And you've said yes. And I've given a summary. Once I've given that summary, I just want to check, are you the right person to help me with this? And can we do it now? Because having heard the summary, you might think, actually, this is a much bigger topic. I really want to give this attention. Can we schedule time later? Or you might say, actually, no, I've realized I don't have the info you need, or I'm not the right person, and you can redirect me. So validate that the person you're talking to has the ability and the availability to talk to you at that moment.
Chris is about to share some of his favorite things. And one of my favorite things is our sponsors. Check them out. One sponsor to check out is EarthBreeze. I recently saw a Netflix documentary that talks about all the plastic that we throw away and we try to recycle, but it doesn't really get recycled. So I've been trying to reduce my plastic, and the most wonderful way that I've been doing so has been skipping those gigantic laundry detergent bottles for EarthBreeze detergent sheets. EarthBreeze detergent comes in super convenient cardboard, plastic-free packaging, so it's much more eco-friendly than your normal detergent. And I love how portable and quick and easy they are, and I save a pretty reasonable amount of time skipping having to carefully pour and measure liquid detergent into the machine by just tossing a quick and easy sheet in there. I personally like their scent-free version, so check out EarthBreeze for an easy way to get clean clothes without the plastic waste and get 40% off with your subscription at earthbreeze.com/awesome. That's earthbreeze.com/awesome. One sponsor checkout is Bamboo HR. I love owning my own business, but I do not love doing government compliancy things. HR is hard, but Bamboo HR is easy. Bamboo HR is a powerful yet flexible all-in-one HR solution for your growing business. Wrangling benefits, onboarding, performance, recruiting, reporting, vacation time, trainings, oh my, can take hours. But with Bamboo HR, it can take mere minutes. Setting up a demo account is ridiculously easy. I didn't have to coordinate calendars to schedule a demo with a sales rep. Nope. I just created a sample account with sample data within 3 minutes of visiting their website, so I could immediately behold its vast capabilities. The software is genuinely beautiful in its breadth and simplicity. No wonder 34,000 companies trust Bamboo HR with their HR needs. So reclaim your time and check out the free demo at bamboohr.com/free demo. See for yourself all that Bamboo HR can do and how truly affordable it can be too. That's bamboohr.com/free demo. One more time, bamboohr.com/free demo. Well, now could you share a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
My favorite quote comes from my dad, which is, if you want to do something, don't talk about doing it, go and do it.
All right. And a favorite study or experiment or bit of research?
Yes, there's a piece of research that blows my mind every time I hear about it. There's an experiment about our inability to read emotions from text. And it was called Can We Communicate as Well as We Think? And it's by Kruger, Epley, Parker, and Z. And they published in the Journal of Psychology. And they did an experiment where they sent people text messages that were sarcastic and tried to get people to understand whether they were sarcastic. And it was 50-50. And then they did it with their spouses, and it was still 50-50 as to whether people got the sarcasm. We just can't interpret emotion from text. And it's a brilliant piece of research, and it comes up so many times in things that I read and teach as well.
Oh, Chris, thank you for that. And props for having a specific citation. Extra credit for you. Extra credit. And a favorite book?
At the moment, my favorite book is Thinking 101 by Woo Kyung Ahn. And it's blowing my mind about my own biases and the way that I interpret and think about things it's really challenging the way that I approach problems and think. It's a very eye-opening book.
Mm-hmm. And a favorite tool? Something you use to be awesome at your job?
Calendly. I couldn't do this job efficiently without Calendly. It's product placement, but playing calendar tennis with people. Do you have time here? What about 10 o'clock there? And juggling time zones. Calendly makes it so easy.
And a favorite habit, something that helps you be awesome at your job.
I don't do it as often as I like, but my favorite habit is going to bed on time.
Mm-hmm.
It sets up the next day, the next few days. And if I don't do it, I really pay the price.
Yeah. And is there a key nugget you shared that really seems to connect and resonate with folks? You hear it quoted back to you often?
The thing that comes back most often, and this is the most highlighted phrase in the book from Kindle. So Kindle's very nice. It shows you what people are highlighting. And 900 people have highlighted that framing should take no more than 3 sentences and be delivered in less than 15 seconds. Now, for some reason, that is the piece that resonates with people. And I completely agree. 3 sentences, 15 seconds. That's all it takes to set up a great conversation.
Okay. And if folks want to learn more or get in touch, where would you point them?
My social hangout is LinkedIn. Come find me there. And my website is chrisfenning.com.
And you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
I do. If you want to be awesome at your job and stand out, take 30 seconds to prepare for an important conversation. In fact, take 30 seconds to prepare for any work conversation. It'll help you get clear on your message. You'll have shorter conversations and you'll get the results that you want.
All right. Chris, this has been a treat. Thank you. I wish you many fabulous conversations.
Thank you, Pete.
I think Chris has set up some fantastic frameworks here with context, intent, key message, and goal, problem, solution, just to get you in the groove of sharing what needs to be shared right up front. And I think what's also intriguing here is the same kind of calming psychological goodness that these things achieve in terms of, oh, okay, I know what we're doing. I know what to expect. I know where we're headed. Okay, cool. Things are all framed up for me and I feel comfortable and cozy about this conversation, this communication that's about to go down. And so within this context, I've known all along, I don't really care for when I'm asked, hey, you got a minute? I feel a little uneasy, like, where's this going? And in fact, it is the antithesis, the exact opposite of all this good stuff associated with sharing context. Do you have a minute? It's like, wait, what the heck are we doing? And is it really going to be a minute? And what's going on? It's like I have the opposite of all of that. And so that really clarifies quite nicely for me in terms of why does it feel great to have that set up? And why does it feel horrible to be asked if you have a minute? The same concept. How well are we equipped for what is about to follow? Great stuff from Chris. If you'd like a summary write-up of the actionable wisdom Chris shared, those are called the Gold Nuggets at awesomeatyourjob.com. And if you would like to see the show notes, transcript, and links to items that we referenced here in this conversation, please drop on by awesomeatyourjob.com/EP951. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.
Thanks for listening. To get the most out of the show, we recommend 2 key things. First, check out the extra resources at awesomeatyourjob.com. You can find this episode's transcript and links, as well as the perfect episode for your situation. You can search the full text transcripts of hundreds of episodes or explore episodes tagged by topic and competency covered. Second, subscribe to the podcast and get future episodes automatically. You can subscribe by telling Siri and several other smartphones and speakers, subscribe to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast, or by tapping subscribe in your podcast player of choice. If you'd like some extra help figuring out podcasts and how subscriptions work, visit awesomeatyourjob.com/subscribe for guidance. Hope to catch you on the next episode of How to Be Awesome at Your Job.